So, a while back, lordimmolation made a video about Ben Stein's documentary, or I think it's a stretch to even call it that. It's not documenting something, but adding fuel to the fire of something which wishes to be documented. And this is, you could say the same thing about the new atheists and Daniel Dennett's Brights, all these atheist societies that are sprouting up, trying to counter the claims made by all of these creationist and or intelligent design people. So, that's not just to damn Ben Stein's movement, or at least the movement behind Ben Stein making this movie about intelligent design. It's called Expelled, by the way. And on lordimmolation's video, I was having a discussion about DNA with somebody, because the reason the intelligence design versus evolution, they call it, debate is kind of completely misguided on both sides, I think, is that what we call evolution, the scientific opponents of the religious people trying to make dogma and belief part of scientific objective investigation, what we call evolution is neo-Darwinian evolution, which is based on a materialistic, mechanistic, reductionistic way of doing science. But this type of science wouldn't define itself as a way of doing science. It would say, no, this is the truth about reality. This is how you have to find it. And part of what they say is the truth about reality, or at least the reality of biological systems, is that DNA is a self-replicating crystal which is capable of replicating itself with very high fidelity, though with just enough wiggle room to produce mutations that can be selected by an environment, and thereby evolve into more complex forms. And of course, this is all resting on the central dogma. That's what it's called in evolutionary biology. It's the idea that there's this one-way, linear pathway of energy where DNA produces messenger RNA, which produces proteins. And it's not necessarily that there's a one-to-one relationship between, how any specific group of nucleic acids in the genome become or cause a specific protein. There are multifactorial interactions. It's a very complex process that we don't exactly understand. We talk about genes all the time, but what we call a gene is more of an abstract idea that helps us measure a phenomenon which is actually far more complex at the molecular level itself. But anyways, I was having a discussion in the comments, and I said that DNA cannot reproduce itself, and RedTurtle said yes it can. Reproduction is inherent to the structure of DNA. The great thing about DNA is that it can be used with extra machinery to code proteins. And this kid has lost my attention. Oh, he's talking about somebody else there, but okay. Reproduction is inherent to the structure of DNA. That's his first claim. And then he says that only with extra machinery can DNA be used to code proteins. Now keep in mind, without those proteins, the DNA would not be able to reproduce itself, which was my claim in the comments that this is a response to. So I don't see that. I don't understand how you can say that reproduction is inherent to DNA, that DNA is self-replicating, and then say that with extra machinery it codes proteins. because yes, obviously that's true, but the ability to code proteins is a requirement for that whole cell then, which the proteins engage with one another to give rise to, can find a mate and have sex, or in the case of bacteria, can allow that DNA molecule to produce, in bacteria, a beneficial trait for another cellular organism, a whole cellular organism. The DNA by itself is just dead stuff. It doesn't replicate at all. It's like a virus, not an organism. So let me read something from the Wikipedia page here. And this has to do with the nature of information and how we, in a reductionistic science like molecular biology, based on Francis Crick, that approach may see information as something which can be disembodied, entirely digital, and that digital determined algorithm is what is responsible for creating everything else. That may be just a confused way of thinking about what information could mean. So this is on the page, the Wikipedia page about self-replication, under the theory section. It says, early research by John von Neumann established that one common form of a replicator has several parts. First, a genome, or a compact, usually error-resistant representation of the replicator's stored algorithm. So that's what the information in the genome is, an error-resistant representation of the replicator's stored algorithm. And keep in mind, this is supposed to be an entirely mechanical process. There's no sentience, there's no, you would think, interpretation involved in this process by any organisms or minds of any kind, right? So von Neumann says, biologically, this error-resistant representation of the replicator stored algorithm is DNA. Second, a specialized set of mechanisms to copy and repair the genome would be present in a replicator, using resources gathered by the body. Biologically, this is something like DNA polymerase, which is a protein or an enzyme which helps to catalyze the replication of DNA. DNA cannot reproduce itself without DNA polymerase. Third, a body which gathers resources and energy and interprets a stored algorithm. Biologically, these are ribosomes. That's the thing that grabs the messenger RNA and sort of like streams that messenger RNA through it, collecting amino acids into the correct order, which then, due to the speed at which that chain of amino acids is spit out the other end of the ribosome, folds in a certain way and then becomes biologically active depending on that shape and its molecular qualities. So DNA does not self-replicate. It requires all of this other machinery gathered from the body and by the body. The body is an active thing in the world going around intentionally doing things. That's what organisms do. So to reduce it all to what the DNA does, which isn't much by itself, is a mistake. And it's a mistake that scientific materialism does and says, oh, that's all that life is. And so, of course, the religious people, they see that and they go, what do you mean? I have free will. I can decide to love Jesus or not. And you can decide to, make a deal with the devil. You have moral responsibilities. That's what the theist is screaming about. But then they take it a step too far and don't understand what science is supposed to be about, which isn't this materialistic, nihilistic, at the end of the day, science that says everything is nothing. It's just a computer code printing out algorithms, and they're selected by circumstances that are random, so, just who cares, basically. You don't necessarily have to come to that conclusion. You could say, well, this is why I'm confused about this, because I think it's a contradiction. You could say, well, we, our intelligence or our objective, scientific, rational minds are capable of, grabbing a hold of these genes and telling them to stop, and it's still suggesting we can become responsible, even though we're saying objectively, scientifically, factually, there's no such thing as magic. There's no such thing as consciousness, which has free will. I don't understand that position. I'm confused by it. But RedTurtle, I'm not sure if you were saying that DNA is the causal mechanism which determines the rest of life or anything like that. I just wanted to clear up something that usually is confused, so get back to me.